I had to laugh when I looked at the Sunday passages for this coming week. Today is March 23rd. It's Monday. And I was looking at the passages for this coming Sunday, the 29th, and they are Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14, which is the valley of the dry bones, and Romans 8, 6 through 11, which talks about being afraid of ailments of the flesh rather than trusting in God's Spirit. And also John 11, 1 through 45, which is the death and raising up from the dead of Lazarus by Jesus. And these all felt like so oddly appropriate passages for our current situation. This idea of death and life and fearing for the physical, trusting in God. And I actually found it very difficult to decide which passage to preach on this week. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to preach from Ezekiel and Romans on Sunday. You very rarely get a sneak peek into what I will be preaching, but I will be preaching that passage from Ezekiel and from Romans. I'm not sure which I'll be focusing more on at this point. But for our daily devotionals this week, I want to step through the story of Lazarus as accounted in John 11. So it's a very long passage. Today, I'm just going to read the passage and offer a few words of hope from that passage, and then we will spend more time in it tomorrow. This is from the Gospel according to John, chapter 11, verses 1 through 45. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill, so the sisters sent a message to Jesus. Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then, after this, he said to the disciples, Let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and you are going there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world, but those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them. After saying this, he told them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right. Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I am glad I was not there so that you may believe, but let us go to him. Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go, that we may die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, The teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. Life and death in the Gospel of John, they have a different meaning for Jesus. And in this passage, we hear Jesus start to explain that a little bit. It is not always about physical death or life, literal death or life, but there is something greater to be embraced. And sometimes the things that come along with physical, literal death and life have some sort of significance. In the case of this particular narrative, and many in the book of John, these are signs of who Jesus is. And so I think that today our takeaway from this passage is severalfold. First of all, we need to remember that even in those times of physical death or suffering, Jesus is with us and feels it with us. Jesus wept as those who mourned for Lazarus wept. It's also okay to feel a little bit angry sometimes. Mary and Martha both say to Jesus, if you had come on time, he wouldn't have died. This is about resurrection and new life. And at the end of whatever this winds up being for us over the next weeks or months or longer, we need to look forward to the resurrection at the other end, the new life that will come out of the work we do now in this dark time of death. Jesus was there because he loved his friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. This wasn't about showing off for Jesus. This was about his love for the people around him. So as we move forward this week, we're going to really dig into this particular passage. If you do not have a Bible or you would like to check out a different translation, there are 2 ways I strongly recommend doing so. If you're just using your computer, there is a website, BibleGateway.com. That is an excellent website for Bible study. If you're using your phone or tablet, there is a Bible called the YouVersion Bible. That's a very common one. There are devotional plans, different translations of the ancient texts, and those are both really helpful resources. Even if you have a Bible at home, they can be a great way to access commentaries and devotionals and different translations of Scripture.